Welcome back to a brand new episode of Third and Goal on Lit Sports Online. Me and Justin are back, and we're ready to talk some preseason football. Now, Justin, there's a lot of questions leading up to this season, specifically because of the pandemic we're all experiencing right now. Other sports have done it, at least up, so far. How should we expect the NFL to go about things?
Well, I don't know that it's so much how should we expect them to versus I think there's certain things that we think that they could do to make it easier on themselves, right? I mean, you talk about maybe playing without any fans in the stadium, playing maybe in less venues instead of maybe you can constrict it down to they're only playing in like 4 stadiums, like maybe one in each region of the country or something like that. I think there's certain things they could do to help, but ultimately at the end of the day, we're talking about 52-man rosters and 32 teams and a sport where it's nonstop collisions. So I don't really think you can totally mitigate COVID or even like to a acceptable level, to be honest. I think so far what we've seen from the other sport leagues is, I don't follow MLB that closely, so maybe you can fill me in on this, but did they have to like stop the season?
No, they didn't have to stop the season, but I do know me and Jordan actually did a video a few weeks ago when the Marlins had their outbreak. Virtually, they had to postpone a bunch of games, and they were playing a few men down. But other than that, the season is still going. Basketball has been the most impressive. That bubble really is something. I haven't heard about any, big, contractions with any teams. But everything seems to be moving there. But, yeah, baseball did have their problems in the beginning. It's been quiet lately, but football is concerning. But, again, it's one of those things where you look at football as a sport, and it's a lot of hand-to-hand contact. As a former lineman, you're virtually having someone virtually breathing your face every time you get down before a play. It is interesting. And with college, actually, is what really concerns me is a lot of the Power 5 conferences, the Pac-12 and Big Ten, two so far, they have, and actually a bunch of other subdivisions have canceled their seasons or at least postponed it to the spring. The SEC is looking to start theirs. ACC is another one that's looking to play their season, but it's looking messy in college, and there's a lot of questions on how this will affect the draft, actually.
So first, I just want to say on the COVID thing, I still think that we're going to get a full regular season, because I think what's going to happen is you're probably going to have a lot of outbreaks, but the coaches are just going to put in the backups or the third strings if need be and get through the season. But I think what the NFL is miscalculating here is what kind of happens to your publicity and public sentiment if you have like players getting sick and actually dying from their illness. I don't think this is getting talked about enough. There's a lot of, you think about all the linemen playing. They're all mostly obese guys, technically. So that's considered an underlying condition. You look at the guys that are diabetic, like Mark Andrews, who didn't opt out as far as I know. So, there's a lot of bad things that could possibly happen here, but I think what's going to end up happening is that the owners are just going to want to truck through the season anyway. We'll have to see what happens, man.
Yeah, and it's one of those weird things because of how the NFL is organized. Now, the MLB was able to negotiate universal no fans, certain guidelines in place that, have kept this season going and looks to hopefully makes it till the end. I hope so, at least for a baseball standpoint. But football has too many different owners, and you have too many different personalities where you have you have so many different owners with, that just have different viewpoints. Jerry Jones, Dallas's owner, one of the biggest examples, he pledged to have fans in stadium. And now, again, you also got to think they're from certain regions. Now, this is Texas. There's a different mindset compared to Baltimore where, at least the last time I heard, and this is back in July, Steve Bisciotti was looking at maybe, I think the number was around 14, maybe 45. I'm not sure. I know it was 4 something. 14,000 fans in the stadium. So I don't know. It's just, and then there's also, you go a little bit further north where Philly has just completely said no fans. So I think the fact that they're not even on the same page with that causes concern for me, at least. As a fan looking, it's like, how long is this season going to go? Is this going to affect the fans that end up going to these games that do actually have fans? And then also comes into place, and I had a talk with Jordan about this, the teams that can have fans compared to the teams that don't have fans, what type of advantage is that going to have when you have certain teams that are only halfway used to listening to nobody?
Well, I think it's a huge risk for the team owners to go forward with this approach of putting thousands of fans in the stadiums, because I could see a situation happening where, you have fans that are getting sick and dying from going to the games, and then because of that, the local government decides to crack down and make it so that they can't operate in the stadium anymore. I mean, you could see something like that happening, and then that could really hurt the football season if that happens. I think what the owners need to do is just keep the fans at home, focus on TV revenue, and just put all your eggs into that basket, because that's still enough to keep the ship afloat in the NFL.
Oh yeah, I mean the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. I mean, they're going to lose money. I mean, there's going to be a lot of revenue loss from the stadiums, but again, most of the country, if not all of it, has been hit by this. Everybody's lost money out of this, right down to the average middle-class worker. Everybody's lost money. So, I mean, the NFL losing stadium revenue, it is what it is, honestly. That being said, we could talk about COVID all day and all night. You hear enough about that on the media. But let's talk about some of the fun stuff to look forward to in the NFL. And I just want to jump to Week 3, Monday Night Football. We have two of probably the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now going head-to-head. They are the future Brady versus Manning. I'm talking about Pat Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson. Who's going to have a better season, Justin? Come on, man. Be honest. I want to know who you think is going to have a better season, Pat Mahomes or Lamar Jackson.
I think they're both going to have great seasons, but when I look at the Chiefs, I see a team that's really kept everyone together, and they're fresh off of a Super Bowl win. So I'm not going to pick against Mahomes to have an MVP caliber season here. I mean, he's got all his same weapons, with the exception of the backfield is a little different, because Damian Williams opted out, but they drafted a guy in the first round, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which I might talk a bit more about him later when we get to the rookies. But I between the two, I'm picking Mahomes, but I think it's razor thin. I think you could easily go with Lamar too. I mean, I think they're both a great season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be real. I'll be a homer for a second. I'm going to go with Lamar. I think, honestly, looking at what the Ravens have been doing, because I have been following them as close as you can, there isn't much media presence at these preseason, practices right now. But looking at who the Ravens have around him, I mean, they drafted very well in getting a running back in the second round. You have Hollywood coming back, and he looks amazing. In any of the little videos he's put on Twitter or on Instagram, I mean, he looks fantastic. I'm glad whatever recovery he needed was done, because I am excited to see that guy at full speed. Then there's also talk of Dez Bryant. Now, Dez Bryant is interesting to me because that affects the Ravens' run game, and that is something that Lamar Jackson does dramatically well compared to other quarterbacks. You get a big body receiver out there. That's insane. That's something they didn't even have that last year, honestly. A big body receiver that could do some outside blocking like that. So I don't know. I think, honestly, in my opinion, I think the Madden curse is dead. Pat Mahomes winning the Super Bowl kind of canceled that out. I think Lamar's got his chance. I think he's going to get the monkey off his back and get through the playoffs this year.
Well, Pat Mahomes, didn't he still get injured for part of last year? So I don't know if it's completely dead, but he just overcame it.
All right, Justin, damn, man.
The Dez Bryant thing, that's interesting. So you're hearing they're going to sign him. That's the rumor?
They're working him out. When people start talking about signing, I mean, they were saying that about AV they've been saying that actually since they ran that little workout at the beginning of quarantine. So, when the fans and Twitter and the media start saying, oh, they could possibly sign him, I don't believe it until I see it. Dez Bryant was one of those players that, before the Ravens got hot shit, he didn't want to sign with us. Now here he comes looking for a contract. The Saints kind of got rid of him. And, of course, you know what happened. My thing is, I'm curious to know if he's game healthy. You can be physically healthy all day, all night. But how are you going to be when you line up and go? That's what I'm curious about. I don't know if they're going to sign him, but I guess we'll probably find out by at least Friday.
I'll be honest, I'd be much more interested to see Antonio Brown on the Ravens than Dez
100%.
Bryant.
100%.
Because, I mean, could you imagine, like, Marquise and Antonio being related on opposite sides of the field playing together? That'd be pretty funny.
Like,
It'd be pretty cool. But
that would just be insane.
Also, because I think Antonio Brown is, like, at this point, a much better receiver than Dez. So, like, the only real wild card is his personality.
Yeah, I mean, you know what you're going to get skill-wise when Dez puts his mind to it. And that's literally top 2, top 3 receiver. If he really gets his mind right and actually just plays ball, you're looking at probably one of arguably the best wide receivers in the NFL right now. But again, with a lot of the off-field antics and just how things went with the Patriots and Oakland and, of course, Pittsburgh, I think the Ravens are a little wary about signing him, honestly. So, I don't know. Like, I would love it. As a Ravens fan, I would love it. But I just don't know how feasible it's going to be, just given his history. I just don't think a lot of teams are going to be willing to take a risk on him.
I just think if there's one situation he could succeed in, it would be Baltimore because, A, he gets revenge on the Steelers. B, he gets to play with Marquise Brown, who he's related to. C, it's a winning organization. I mean, I think Antonio Brown just doesn't want to be stuck on some loser team at the end of the day.
100%. I mean, I just think, there's just so much around it. Again, like I said, I would love to see him suit up in purple and black. It would be amazing. I would love to just see Steeler fans cry and just bitch and say what they're going to say in probably the comment section down below if this happened. But I just don't think it's going to happen. But Dez Bryant looks to be most likely. I mean, I don't think any other teams are taking a shot on him. So if they're the only team probably working him out right now, there's a good chance that if he can get through this workout, show that he's, got some quickness left. And, I mean, we know he's got the size. We could see him in purple and black in a couple of weeks. So, who knows? Big squad.
We'll see. We'll also see if he's anything more than a one-dimensional red zone threat receiver at this point in his career.
Well, I mean, with the receiving core the Ravens have, it's not like we don't need it. A big body in the end zone. Top that off. If you also have Mark Andrews, I mean, that's a scary thing for the Ravens offense, I think. So, who really knows? That being said, there's a lot of questions, of course. Without having a preseason, we don't get to see a lot of the rookies do what the rookies do, and that's play. We're used to 4 games of preseason where it virtually is their tryout in front of the lights, and we're not able to see that this year. So that leaves me a lot of questions on who do you think is going to be good this year? Just right out the gate, who are you looking forward?
Well, on the offense side, there was a lot of good running backs that went in this draft, and I think the one that's going to get the most immediate opportunity out of the gate is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now that Damian Williams has opted out, that leaves his only competition in the backfield, DeAndre Washington and Darrell Williams, some of the other guys that were on the Chiefs last year. But so he's going to immediately be thrust into what should be a starting role. And while I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the best talent running back to go in the draft, even though he was picked first, it's a situation where you pretty much can't fail. I mean, you could put someone that's like a jag on the Chiefs, and if you give him enough touches, he's going to look good. So I'm interested to see what Clyde Edwards does. Also, another running back, DeAndre Swift on the Lions, is he going to eat Kerryon Johnson's lunch? Probably so, but sooner rather than later, I would think. Will the Lions finally have a running game? That's another thing I'm looking for.
That if the Lions with a running game, that's a scary thing. So a rookie I'm actually looking forward to is actually, funny enough, a guy that's in the same division as my Ravens, Joe Burrows. I'm actually interested to see if he can change the culture in Cincinnati. I think there's a lot of weight on his shoulder, being that he doesn't have a preseason to really prepare against the NFL speed. So I'm sure obviously he's getting a ton of reps in, just practice in general, but I'm really interested to see how he takes without, preseason, just going from a national championship to suiting up week one as obviously the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. I just wonder how that's going to go, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Burrow is, to me, a wild card. I think there's a chance he could be good in the NFL, but I also think that it was a pretty weak quarterback class that we saw coming out of this draft.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I like Tua, but he's got injury problems, and Burrow I'm not really sure about because he really only had just that one big season in college, and outside of that, he was more or less a backup. So the one thing I will say about Joe Burrow that could be interesting is that he's kind of got like better mobility and speed than you would think. He's actually pretty good at scrambling, and I'm curious to see how much we're going to see of that when he plays in this first season. But overall, I don't know that he could be a whole lot worse than Andy Dalton. So.
I mean, it doesn't get any worse than Andy Dalton. I mean, Dallas, have fun with that. Oh, God, the fact that Dallas signed him, that's hilarious. That's a different episode. Chris Gordon, I'm talking to you. But, yeah, I mean, the situation you have in the Bengals is obviously one of those pivotal moments that you have a very young division. So they had no choice but to get a new leader. They had to get a young quarterback. And outside of the Steelers, I mean, you're looking at probably most of the future of the NFL just in that division alone. And I'm going to stick with that because on the defensive side, I want to look at Patrick Queen. I want to see what he can do. Now, the Ravens have been looking for that replacement to Ray Lewis since about, 2012, 2013? We thought C.J. Mosley was going to be it. That didn't happen. Patrick Queen, fresh off a national championship season in college, he's probably riding the biggest high you could ever imagine. And now he probably gets to suit up week one as a starter, inside linebacker in the NFL. I mean, that's amazing. Defense is a little bit more, you can get used to defense, I think, faster than offense in the NFL. Just because of most of the play calling in defense is very similar. Outside of the speed aspect and how fast the game moves in college, I think that he'll have a much easier time, acclimating and getting used to the NFL speed, that takes me actually right down 95 south to Chase Young with the Washington Redskins now. That's a bad man. Number 2 overall? One of the best defensive linemen in all of college football? I honestly think this kid very well could be the next big thing at defensive line. I don't think it gets much better than that. He just has natural ability, pure speed. I mean, he's massive. He's fast. NFC quarterbacks, look out. He's coming for you. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think he's going to be a real bright spot in that Washington team.
Washington football team.
Washington football team. Yep. Washington football team. So he'll be a bright spot, but let's be honest, we don't see anything going for that team this year.
I mean,
but since you brought up defense, I also want to talk defensive rookies. There's 2 I'm looking at. I would have talked Patrick Queen, but you already brought him up, so I'll go with another 2. So there's Clavon Chason on the Jaguars. And this is a guy that got drafted as an edge rusher. And they already spent early round draft capital not that long ago on Josh Allen, also on that as a pass rush. So if they actually found another elite pass rush in this class, oh boy, that defense could keep that team competitive. But we'll just have to see how quickly he develops. Will he be that kind of elite pass rusher in year one, or is it going to take time? I'm looking at that. And then I'm also looking at going back to the NFC North, Grant Delpit on the Browns, safety. Will he make some big plays? That's another guy I'm looking at there. I think he's one of those guys that's kind of getting overlooked on defense that could actually be an impact player.
Yeah, I'll be interested. Definitely see him saying how he's on the Browns. We play him twice a year.
Yeah, so you'll get to see him all right.
We'll get to know him very well. We'll see how he goes in trying to chase down Lamar Jackson.
And he should be starting right out of the gate at that safety spot. So I think we'll get to see quite a bit of him.
Well, I'll be interested. Definitely keep my eye on him. Now, of course, we don't have much time left in the episode, so I want to just do it right now. We are preseason. We'll be 2 weeks away from the NFL start. Let's get your Super Bowl picks in, Justin. Tell me who you got, bro. I still owe you dinner from last year's Super Bowl.
Oh, man. I'll pick the Chiefs to get back there. Okay. I'll pick the Chiefs on the AFC side. On the NFC, you have to come back to me on that one. Let me think about it a little bit. What are your picks?
All right, so on the NFC, I'll start there because obviously it's low-key no surprise, and I'll give you my reasons why on the AFC. But the NFC, I think I'm going to Seahawks. I'm going to Seahawks because I think Russell Wilson is arguably one of the best, top 3 quarterback in the NFL. He's young. He's still got a lot of gas in the tank, and he's got a team around him. The NFC West in itself, outside of the 49ers, sorry, Justin, it's just not – I mean, the 49ers are literally their only competition out there. And, again, that's counting on Jimmy Garoppolo managing the game correctly. So I think the Seahawks definitely have the easiest path to the Super Bowl. Saints are another team, but they're definitely my backup choice on the NFC. On the AFC, I got to go with the Ravens. The Ravens are probably one of the youngest squads there. They retain mostly everybody outside of Hayden Hurst, who's now on the Falcons. But they've added the pieces where they need to, and there's also a chance we could get Dez Bryant. And, of course, there's the $1 million out-of-nowhere long shot chance we could get AB. So I think the Ravens definitely have the best shot as long as they can stay focused in the playoffs and not underestimate the opponent. I think, honestly, that AFC is there to take. Now, if I had to go for another choice, I'm actually going to shock a lot of people. I think the Patriots possibly, and I'm going to tell you why. Cam Newton at quarterback in a Belichick system, that is by far one of the most interesting things that I can just think of. I'm interested to see if Cam Newton can bounce back, if maybe this is like a second win for him. If Belichick, I don't think he's going to lay down season like everybody on the internet says, oh, he's going to lay down for Trevor. No, I think he's a fighter and he's going to try to win, and I think Cam Newton's his guy.
Yeah, I'm with you on Bill Belichick trying to win. I mean, the thing is, even if they rolled with Stid, I don't think they would have been in a position to get the first pick. So Belichick's going to keep that team competitive regardless of who's under center.
Yeah, like I said, that's my wild card pick. I'm telling you, Patriots, I think, are going to surprise some people.
So I've been mulling over the NFC choices, and honestly, I think there's a strong chance we're going to get a Super Bowl contender out of that NFC East division. It's just not going to be Washington football team or the Giants. I'm looking at the Philly Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys right now. I think those teams looking really strong. And if I have to pick one, I'll go Eagles. I'll say we see a big comeback from Carson Wentz. Their defense got better with Darius Slay added to the team. They have trouble with their secondary in recent years. And the emergence of Goddard to go with Ertz. I like that Philly team to possibly make the Super Bowl.
Philly's a great choice, actually. I have two of my closest friends are Eagles fans, and we always talk about the possibility of a Ravens-Eagles Super Bowl and how awesome that would be. Just because of the areas are roughly 2 hours apart, it would just be amazing. That would be awesome. Plus, Redskins fans would hate it. But I'm interested about the Eagles. Now, I think Carson Wentz is their guy. I mean, he's a veteran. He's solid when he's healthy. When do they incorporate Jalen Hurts into that offense, or do they at all?
I think, from the reports I've heard, he's going to get some play as a gadget type, maybe similar to how the Saints have used Taysom Hill. But I think ultimately you're not going to see a true Jalen Hurts breakout until Carson Wentz gets an injury, if he does get an injury.
Yeah.
I do think that Hurts was one of the better quarterbacks in this draft class, but he's going to have to sit behind Wentz. They're not just going to throw him in there as a starter. He's got to have an opportunity present to take advantage of. But until then, I think you could see him running some gadget plays.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not a bad thing to sit behind Carson Wentz, who is a pretty respectable quarterback. I think he's definitely mid-tier, upper mid-tier guy. When healthy, he's very solid. We're looking at a for sure Pro Bowl quarterback. But again, the health, the injuries, that's going to be a huge question. I mean, we know the Eagles can win with a backup at the Super Bowl, so who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. But like I said, that it's interesting that NFC East division because you got two bottom feeders and then two really competitive teams I'm looking at.
Very true.
So I think ultimately the NFC playoffs, I mean, hey, it could be those two teams going at each other in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is a New York. There's no Eli to, there now. The Washington football team, they're just, they are what they are. And the Cowboys, again, the Cowboys are a very solid team. I mean, they have two very good quarterbacks. I mean, not two very good quarterbacks. They have Dak Prescott, who, fantasy-wise, he helped you have one of the best fantasy football seasons you've ever had.
Yeah.
So we know what he can do statistically. It's just getting all the pieces together and moving forward. So I don't think you're too far off base. I don't think Dallas wins, gets to the Super Bowl, but the Eagles, I think they possibly could. I don't think you're wrong there. But that does it for our episode tonight. We're going to have a ton more content coming for you, talking about the preseason in the next couple of weeks, maybe talking some fantasy football. A new playlist, actually, I want to shout out, created by my boy Justin, LitTube Gaming. We post a lot of Call of Duty and Warzone videos. And when the new Madden comes, we'll be talking about that and posting about that too. So, yeah, stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a good night. Take care.